Master the morning before the world reaches you, because the first moments after waking are the only time in the day that truly belong to you. Before notifications demand attention, before responsibilities pull your focus, before other people's emotions enter your mind, there is a brief window where your awareness is untouched. Most people waste this moment by immediately reacting. They reach for their phone, scroll through problems that are not theirs yet, and allow external noise to dictate their internal state. From that point onward, they are no longer leading their day, they are chasing it. The mind in the early morning is highly impressionable. It has not yet hardened into patterns of stress or distraction. Whatever you introduce in these moments sets the tone for how you think, feel, and act for the rest of the day. When you rush, the nervous system learns urgency. When you react, the mind learns chaos. When you stay still, the body learns control. This is why mastering the morning is not about productivity hacks or complicated routines. It is about establishing authority over your own state before the world tries to claim it. To master the morning means to pause instead of rushing. It means sitting in silence while the mind is tempted to escape. That discomfort is important. It reveals how addicted you are to stimulation. By choosing stillness, even briefly, you send a signal to yourself that you are not a slave to impulse. You are the one deciding how the day begins. This decision strengthens self-respect. When you keep a promise to yourself first thing in the morning, you build trust with yourself, and that trust carries into every action that follows. Most people believe discipline is about forcing yourself to do hard things later in the day. In reality, discipline is established the moment you wake up. If you can control your attention when it is easiest to lose it, you can control it anywhere. The morning is when resistance is lowest and impact is highest. A small act of awareness here outweighs hours of effort later. This is because the mind works on momentum. Once you begin the day consciously, clarity follows you naturally. Mastering the morning also teaches patience. Instead of immediately seeking input, you learn to observe your own thoughts. You notice how the mind jumps from one concern to another without direction. By watching without reacting, you weaken the habit of unnecessary thinking. Over time, this creates space between stimulus and response. In that space lies freedom. You no longer feel compelled to react emotionally to every situation because you have trained yourself to respond deliberately. When the world reaches you before you reach yourself, your identity becomes shaped by circumstances. You begin living according to emails, messages, deadlines, and expectations. But when you meet yourself first each morning, your actions come from intention. You carry a sense of groundedness into conversations. You move with less haste and more precision. People feel this presence even if they cannot explain it. This practice is simple, which is why it is often ignored. The mind looks for complexity to avoid consistency, but real transformation does not come from dramatic changes. It comes from quiet repetition. Every morning you choose awareness over reaction. You strengthen neural pathways associated with calm and focus. The brain adapts to what you repeatedly show it. By mastering the morning, you train your mind to associate waking up with clarity instead of chaos. Over time, you may notice that external problems feel less overwhelming, not because life becomes easier, but because your inner foundation becomes stronger. You stop giving away your best energy to random distractions. You learn to conserve it, direct it, and use it where it matters most. This is how control is built, not through force, but through consistency, not through noise, but through silence, not through reacting to the world, but by meeting yourself first. Every single morning stillness is the foundation of control, because without it, every action you take is a reaction. When the mind is constantly moving, jumping from thought to thought, It creates the illusion of activity, but there is no direction. A restless mind feels busy, yet it is weak. True control does not come from doing more or thinking faster. It comes from the ability to pause, to observe and to choose deliberately. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of awareness. Most people fear stillness because in silence, they are forced to meet themselves. Distractions become a shield, protecting them from discomfort, unresolved emotions, and uncertainty. When external noise disappears, internal noise becomes louder. This is why many feel uneasy when sitting quietly. But this discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of untrained awareness. Avoiding stillness only strengthens the mind's dependency on stimulation and weakens its ability to remain composed under pressure. Control begins when you can remain still even when the mind wants to escape. The body may be at rest, yet the thoughts continue to run. By simply watching these thoughts without following them, you begin to separate yourself from them. You realize that thoughts are events, not commands. This realization is the first step toward mastery. Once you see that you are not your thoughts, you no longer feel compelled to obey every impulse they create. Stillness teaches you to slow down internally, while the external world continues at its own pace. This creates a powerful advantage. When others panic, you remain composed. When others rush, you stay precise. Calmness becomes your default response, not because you suppress emotion, but because you understand it. You allow feelings to arise and pass without letting them dictate your behavior. This ability transforms how you handle conflict, pressure, and uncertainty. In moments of stillness, you begin to notice subtle signals from your body and mind. Tension in the chest, shallow breathing, unnecessary urgency. These signals are usually ignored during constant activity. By paying attention, you learn to regulate your nervous system instead of being controlled by it. A regulated nervous system leads to clear thinking. Clear thinking leads to better decisions. Better decisions compound into long-term success. Many associate control with force, dominance, or aggression. In reality, the more force you apply, the less control you have. Force comes from fear of losing control. Stillness comes from confidence in yourself. When you are still, your actions are efficient. There is no wasted energy. Every movement has purpose. This is why the most effective individuals appear calm even in high-pressure situations. Their stillness gives them access to clarity that others cannot reach. Practicing stillness is a daily discipline. It does not require special conditions or long hours. It requires willingness to sit with discomfort and remain present. Each time you do this, you strengthen mental endurance. You teach the mind that it does not need constant stimulation to feel secure. Over time, silence becomes familiar instead of threatening. In that familiarity, control becomes natural rather than forced. Stillness also sharpens perception. When the mind is quiet, you see situations as they are, not as your emotions distort them. You notice details others overlook. You sense when to act and when to wait. Timing becomes intuitive. This is not intuition as a mystical concept, but as a refined awareness developed through observation. The quieter the mind, the clearer the signal. As stillness deepens, you stop reacting automatically to provocation. Words lose their power to control you. Circumstances lose their ability to shake you. You respond based on values rather than emotion. This is inner authority. It does not announce itself, yet it is felt. People sense stability in those who are still. They trust them. They listen to them. Control rooted in stillness does not seek attention. It simply exists as a steady presence that influences everything around it. Train the mind, don't react to it, because reaction is the lowest form of mental behavior. Reaction happens automatically, without choice, without awareness. Something triggers you, and before you realize it, you are already speaking, acting, or feeling a certain way. In that moment, the mind is not serving you. You are serving the mind. Most people live their entire lives in this state, mistaking reaction for personality and impulse for truth. The mind is designed to protect, not to lead. It is constantly scanning for threats, comparing, judging, predicting. This was useful for survival, but it becomes destructive when left untrained. An untrained mind exaggerates problems, replays past failures, and imagines future fears as if they are happening now. When you react to these thoughts, your body responds as if the danger is real. Stress increases, clarity disappears, and behavior becomes inconsistent. Training the mind means creating distance between awareness and thought. Instead of immediately believing every thought, you observe it. Instead of reacting emotionally, you pause. This pause is where power lives. Even a single second of awareness can interrupt years of conditioning. The mind will still produce thoughts, but you no longer have to follow them. You begin to choose which thoughts deserve your energy. Reaction feels natural because it is familiar. Training feels uncomfortable because it requires effort and patience. The mind resists discipline just as the body resists physical training. At first, awareness feels tiring, focus feels unstable, but with repetition, mental strength develops. Just as muscles grow through resistance, control grows through conscious effort. Every time you notice a reaction and choose not to follow it, you weaken the habit of impulsive behavior. Most emotional suffering comes not from events, but from how the mind interprets them. A comment, a delay, a mistake becomes a story. The story grows, and soon the emotion feels overwhelming. Training the mind allows you to stop the story before it takes over. You see the thought forming and let it pass. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means understanding it without becoming it. When you stop reacting, you gain access to choice. Choice changes everything. You can choose silence instead of argument. You can choose patience instead of frustration. You can choose action instead of avoidance. This ability builds self-respect. You begin to trust yourself because you are no longer unpredictable. Your responses align with your values, not your moods. The world constantly tries to provoke reaction. News, social media, people, pressure. If you react to everything, you become exhausted. Your energy is scattered, your attention divided. Training the mind helps you conserve energy. You stop giving emotional responses to situations that do not deserve them. This creates stability. Stability creates confidence. Confidence reduces the need to prove anything. Training is not about control through force. Forcing the mind creates tension. Observation creates understanding. When you watch the mind patiently, patterns reveal themselves. You see how certain thoughts repeat. You notice triggers. Awareness turns unconscious habits into conscious choices. Once something is conscious, it can be changed. What remains unconscious controls you. Over time, the gap between stimulus and response widens. That gap becomes your strength. In difficult moments, instead of being pulled into reaction, you stay present. Your breathing remains steady. Your body remains relaxed. This physical calm supports mental clarity. Clarity leads to precise action. Precision creates results without unnecessary struggle. A trained mind does not mean a silent mind. It means a disciplined one. Thoughts still arise, but they no longer dominate. Emotions still appear, but they no longer dictate behavior. You act with intention rather than impulse. You move through challenges with steadiness rather than urgency. The mind becomes a tool instead of a master, working in alignment with your awareness rather than against it. One chosen quality shapes the entire day because the mind cannot move in many directions at once. When you wake up without intention, your attention scatters. You try to be productive, calm, confident, focused, and motivated all at the same time. and as a result, you become none of them. The mind becomes overloaded with expectations. Choosing one quality simplifies the internal landscape. It gives the mind a clear direction instead of confusion. Most people underestimate the power of a single focus. They believe change requires many goals and constant effort. In reality, the mind learns through repetition and clarity. When you choose one quality for the day, you give your awareness something specific to return to. Each time you remember it, you reinforce it. Each time you act in alignment with it, you strengthen it. This creates consistency, and consistency shapes identity. A chosen quality is not a goal to be achieved by the end of the day. It is a lens through which you experience everything. If the quality is calmness, you practice calmness in traffic, in conversations, in moments of pressure. If the quality is discipline, you practice it in small actions, not dramatic ones. The quality becomes a guide for how you respond, not something you chase. Without a chosen quality, the day controls you. External events decide your mood. Other people's behavior influences your reactions. You spend the day adjusting instead of leading. A single chosen quality anchors you. When something unexpected happens, you return to that quality and act from it. This creates inner stability. Stability reduces mental noise. With less noise, decision-making becomes easier. Choosing one quality also trains self-awareness. Throughout the day, you begin to notice when you move away from it. You catch yourself becoming impatient when you chose patience, distracted when you chose focus. This noticing is not failure, it is training. Awareness of misalignment is what brings you back. Each return strengthens the habit of conscious choice. Many people wait for situations to force growth. They believe pressure will shape them. Pressure shapes behavior temporarily, but intention shapes character permanently. By choosing a quality in advance, you prepare your mind. You no longer wait to see how you will react. You already know how you intend to respond. This reduces anxiety because uncertainty decreases when intention is clear. A single quality also protects your energy. When your mind is divided, energy leaks through overthinking and emotional reactions. When your focus is unified, energy becomes directed. You stop wasting effort on unnecessary mental debates. You act with simplicity. This does not mean life becomes easy, but it becomes cleaner. Fewer internal conflicts mean more available energy for meaningful action. Over time, these daily qualities accumulate. Today's calmness supports tomorrow's clarity. Today's discipline supports tomorrow's confidence. You are not building separate traits. You are building a coherent inner structure. Each quality practiced strengthens the foundation of awareness. This foundation makes it easier to embody other qualities later without force. Choosing one quality teaches patience with growth. Instead of demanding instant change, you respect the process. You understand that depth matters more than speed. One quality practiced fully is more powerful than many practiced superficially. The mind responds to depth. It adapts to what you consistently emphasize. As this practice continues, you notice a shift. You begin the day with purpose rather than urgency. You move through tasks with intention rather than pressure. Even when you forget the quality, you remember faster. That speed of remembering is progress. It shows that awareness is strengthening. The quality no longer feels forced. It begins to feel natural, integrated into how you think, speak, and act throughout the day. Habits decide success, not motivation, because motivation is unstable while habits are reliable. Motivation depends on mood, energy, and circumstances. Some days it is strong, other days it disappears completely. If your progress depends on motivation, your results will always be inconsistent. Habits remove the need for constant decision-making. Once something becomes habitual, it happens with less resistance, less emotion, and less mental effort. The mind seeks efficiency. It prefers patterns over choices. Every repeated action becomes a shortcut in the brain. When an action is repeated enough times, the mind no longer questions it. This is why habits are powerful. They operate beneath conscious thought. Success does not come from moments of intense effort, but from behaviors that are performed even when you do not feel inspired. Many people wait to feel motivated before they act. This creates delay. Delay creates guilt. Guilt drains energy. Over time, this cycle weakens confidence. Habits break this cycle. When action is automatic, emotion becomes irrelevant. You act first and the feeling follows. Discipline replaces negotiation. There is no internal debate, only execution. Motivation focuses on outcomes. Habits focus on process. Outcomes are distant and uncertain. Process is immediate and controllable. When you attach your effort to habits, you focus on what you can do now instead of what you hope to achieve later. This reduces pressure. Reduced pressure improves consistency. Consistency compounds quietly into results. Habits also shape identity. What you repeatedly do becomes what you believe about yourself. If you wake up early consistently, you begin to see yourself as disciplined. If you train your mind daily, you see yourself as focused. This identity then reinforces the habit. You are no longer forcing behavior. You are expressing who you believe you are. Motivation alone cannot create this shift because it does not last long enough to change self-image. Success built on motivation is fragile. The moment discomfort appears, effort drops. Success built on habit is resilient. It continues through boredom, fatigue, and doubt. Habits do not require emotional agreement. They function even when the mind resists. This is why small habits are more effective than big intentions. Small actions repeated daily outlast grand plans performed occasionally. Many underestimate how small habits influence long-term direction. A few minutes of awareness every day seems insignificant, yet it changes how you respond to stress. A short daily practice of discipline seems minor, yet it strengthens self-control. The mind adapts to what it does often, not what it does intensely once. Habits shape the nervous system, attention span, and emotional regulation over time. When habits are in place, motivation becomes a bonus instead of a requirement. On motivated days, progress accelerates. On unmotivated days, progress continues. This stability builds trust in yourself. You no longer fear low-energy days because your system supports you. You stop relying on emotional highs to move forward. Habits also protect you from self-sabotage. When the mind is tired, it seeks comfort and avoidance. A strong habit bypasses this tendency. It reduces exposure to impulse-based decisions. The fewer decisions you need to make, the less opportunity there is for the mind to escape responsibility. Structure creates freedom by reducing chaos. Over time, habits create momentum. Momentum changes perception. What once felt difficult becomes normal. What once required effort becomes routine. This is how growth becomes sustainable. Not through forcing yourself every day, but through designing behaviors that continue regardless of how you feel. Motivation may start the journey, but habits are what carry it forward day after day. Consistency rewires the mind over time because the brain changes through repetition, not through sudden insight. Many people search for a breakthrough moment that will permanently transform them. They wait for clarity, confidence, or discipline to appear all at once. But the mind does not work that way. It adapts slowly, quietly, through repeated exposure to the same actions, thoughts, and behaviors. What you do once has little impact. What you do daily becomes who you are. Every repeated action strengthens a neural pathway. The brain becomes efficient at whatever it practices most. If you consistently worry, the mind becomes skilled at anxiety. If you consistently distract yourself, the mind becomes restless. If you consistently return to awareness, the mind learns calm. This process happens whether you are conscious of it or not. Consistency is always shaping you. The only question is in which direction. Many people start strong and stop early. They rely on intensity instead of continuity. Intensity creates excitement, but it also creates burnout. Consistency creates stability. Even small actions, when repeated, send a powerful signal to the brain. They tell the nervous system what is normal. Over time, the brain adjusts its baseline. What once felt unnatural begins to feel familiar. Consistency removes the pressure to perform. You no longer need each day to feel meaningful. You only need to show up. This shift is important because the mind often resists effort when it feels overwhelmed. A consistent practice lowers resistance by keeping expectations small and manageable. You stop asking whether you feel like doing it. You simply do what you have decided to repeat. Rewiring the mind requires patience because the effects are not immediately visible. Early on, it may feel like nothing is changing. Thoughts still arise. Emotions still fluctuate. This is where many give up. They mistake slow progress for no progress. In reality, the changes are happening beneath awareness. Neural connections are forming. Old patterns are weakening. This internal restructuring takes time. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Each time you repeat a behavior as planned, you strengthen self-belief. You prove that you can rely on yourself. This trust reduces inner conflict. When the mind trusts you, it stops resisting. Resistance decreases, focus improves, effort feels lighter. This internal alignment is a result of repeated follow-through. The mind learns through experience, not instruction. You can read, listen, and understand concepts, but understanding does not change behavior. Consistent action does. Each repetition teaches the mind what matters. Over time, priorities shift naturally. You no longer need to remind yourself why something is important. The habit itself carries the message. Consistency also neutralizes emotional extremes. When your actions are stable, your emotions become less volatile. You stop riding highs and lows. Progress becomes steady instead of dramatic. This emotional stability supports long-term growth. You are less likely to quit when results slow down because your identity is no longer tied to immediate outcomes. Small, consistent actions also create compound effects. Each day builds on the previous one. What starts as effort becomes rhythm. Rhythm becomes flow. Flow reduces friction. This is how the mind becomes conditioned to focus, discipline, and calm, not through force, but through familiarity. Over time, the mind begins to anticipate your behavior. When you act consistently, the brain prepares for it. Resistance decreases before it even appears. This is rewiring in action. What once required willpower now requires presence. The practice becomes part of your daily structure, not something you debate. Consistency does not demand perfection. Missing a day does not undo progress. What matters is returning without self-judgment. Each return reinforces the habit of recommitment. This teaches resilience. The mind learns that interruption is temporary, not an excuse to stop. As consistency continues, you begin to notice subtle changes. Your reactions slow down, your awareness increases, your choices become clearer. These changes feel ordinary because they develop gradually. That ordinariness is the sign of real transformation, the mind adapting so smoothly that the new way of being feels natural, integrated, and stable within your daily life